Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our weekly webinar series conducted by AgriConnect TN. ஸோ மோஸ்ட்லி எல்லோரும் ஜாயின் பண்ணிட்டீங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். இன்னைக்கு நம்ம என்ன பார்க்க போகிறோம்னா navigating your research journal, writing, publishing and beyond. ஸோ இந்த செஷன் எடுக்கிறதுக்கு we have Miss Subhavyukta. She is doing PhD in vegetable science at TNAA Coimbatore. We welcome you, Akka. So let's start the session.
So, hello everyone, and if you're someone who's very curious in your classes, you keep asking for doubts in your classes, or you're some student who's very curious about answers for finding answers for questions, and then this webinar is for you. So, hi everyone, this is Subhavyukta, and I'll be with you for the next 1 hour, speaking to you about research, the writing and publishing part of research, which is very important in any academic research journey, and also other important things like fellowships and beyond. So before moving on to the webinar, so I welcome you all to this webinar on navigating your research journey, writing, publishing and beyond. Before we go on to it, let's just have some interaction here. And what you're seeing on the screen is a QR code. You can just scan it with your Google lens and just put up your words with come to your mind. So, and just you can let me know if you have ever thought about doing research and which part of research scares you the most. Before we go to the webinar, we'll just go on with this. You can go to your Google Lens and scan the QR, and you can just put out the thoughts which come to your mind. So while you keep doing that, let me just tell you about what is research and what we need to know about research before going on to the research journey. So basically, searching something again is called research. Already you have an idea or something is proposed, and you dive deep into it, and you're researching something or finding a solution for some problem that is being done with originality and novelty is something which we call as research. So in this webinar, we'll be seeing what you'll be doing in research and what are the tips and pros and cons which you'll need to know during research programs. So let's just see what you replied. And to the question which was asked, like which part of research scares you the most? Like many here audience are UG scholars and those who are doing PhD, and mostly you are UG scholars. So before in going on to what we do in research and how we can enhance it, we can just need to just clear our blocks which we think which are really hurdles which stop us from going into this path. So looking into it, you replied, like many have replied, like whether this is your right path to choose, the credibility, the depth, and the about the publication parts many have given, like what about the high impact journals and the app journals, and about manuscript writing and the result and how to execute. And one important thing is the stress part, which we all, this is I think the main thing which we all will fear, as many scare you that when you go to research it is mainly about stress. And the starting, the funding and the topic, and about the result, the solutions and manuscript writing. Okay, so with all these doubts from y'all, I think we'll be covering all this in this webinar, and I hope you will be getting an answer for all these questions you have by the end of the webinar, like in-depth learning, how to execute, publication. All right. Just collected a glimpse of what are all your thoughts. So it's important to know the audience what they want so that we can direct the webinar in the right direction, so that you would get some answers for all your questions you had right now. So this webinar is all about research and the research journey, and what we'll be covering today is, as someone had asked, and the tips of effective thesis writing. as many of you asked, you were also asking about the articles published in media, and also beyond that, many of you were asking about funds and all. So also about fellowships will be covered, and also how you'll build an effective CV for your any research fellowship programs or PhD programs. So I welcome you all to this webinar. So let's get moving into it. So, firstly, the most important part, someone had asked about the research topic, right? So, we're going to see about that now. So, choosing a strong research topic, which is the base or the most important focal point of any research. So, the research area which you choose or the topic which you choose is very important part of any researcher. You know, anyone who's done a research will be identified by his work only. Any scientist or professor you see, he'll be identified based on the work he did in his MSc or PhD. So choosing that research topic is that much vital, so that it forms an entire career path after what you do also. So more than MScs, PhDs is very important. So also in UG you will be doing your projects, right? That is you can also choose that topic based on these few ideas which I am going to share. So choosing a strong research topic, you need the most first and most important thing is that you need to choose something which you're very curious and passionate about. That's the most important in a thing which we all know, as you read in many books like Ikigai. The thing which first and most important thing is what the thing which you have passion, which you're passionate about. When you follow that, all the rest will come into place, will fall into your plate. So the first most important thing, you should be passionate about research. You should not come into your MSc or PhD because of some compulsion, or just for the namesake of doing, or just for the namesake of a degree. You should really have it from within your heart and soul. You should be someone who curiosity to find answers for solution. If you're having something like that, then you can take research as your career path. So the first igniting thing is having curiosity in it. So each of us will have many areas of interest, right? So basically I am interested in plant breeding in my subject. Similarly, engineering students in food processing or in soil and water conservation, or agri students may have in dairy or animal husbandry, whichever area of expertise you wish to form in, or any area which you are truly interested in, is what is the first and most important thing for choosing a research topic. Apart from that, the next comes the other factors, like the department resources and the faculty expertise. Like you will be given a project teacher, or a faculty expertise, or a chairperson for you. So also you can also choose a chairperson according to your wish. Like maybe in TNU and other institutes, you can just try, you can go through the professors the research articles which they did, and the works which they have carried out, to know their expertise. And if your interest aligns with theirs, then you can also choose a research topic based on that. And also the departmental resources, and another important thing is the time feasibility. In MSc you're given 1 year coursework and another year of research. So in that 1 year, what you're able to do in, is important. So you need to know also the time, how much time you're having in hand for you to carry out the research work. For PhD you're having 1 year coursework and minimum of 2 years for your research work. So you also need to keep in mind the time which you have, the department resources, and the expertise of your faculty. Putting all this into what you're curious about will make you choose a research topic which is very strong and which forms the base or the foundation of your building. Like the foundation is important for your any building, similar as your research topic. So choose it wisely. Even if you don't get a good chance to choose your topic that very well in your UG program or your MSc program, you always have a very good chance to do that in your PhD program, as PhD is more important. So you can go and brainstorm with your guide or supervisor or your peers for getting, or you can also go through literatures for getting this foundation done. So with this basic thing, we can go on to the next things, which is the research area which you need. So basically you need to have originality and novelty, which is the important thing. It should be your own. With ethics and novelty, you have to handle research. And basically, you have a research problem, and you need to find a solution for this. With this problem, you need to have a hypothesis. You need to frame a hypothesis which you're going to prove as false or true, which you're going to find out by various literature review. You're going through various literature papers of your interest, whichever it need not be your department alone. It can be multidisciplinary. If I am from vegetable science, I can go through biotechnological approaches and also other entomological. And if you're engineering faculty, you can also go through other departmental thing. So interdisciplinary approach in your area of interest, you need to go through literature, from which when you're going through the lot of literature, you will also come to know what you don't have. So you will get the research gap, which is the basis for your research problem hypothesis, from which you can give a solution. So you will have a basic idea of what solution you will get from it, and from that your research direction will go. There are various rules or norms like how you need to write it. So basically, it is made up of the introduction, literature review, materials and methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. How you are going to approach it is word glass. You know how an hourglass is, right? It is broad at the top and it narrows at the bottom. So this is how the introduction part should be. You can also take this for your theses or also for your articles. The introduction part should be broadened and then it should go narrowly. You have to go through many papers, carry out many ideas, and narrow it down to your research area. So you can give the statistics, the current trends, and what you already have in the introduction part, and narrow it down to what your objectives are, what is the aim of your research. With that, you're finishing the you're narrowing your research part. Nextly, you're going to the materials, which materials and methods, which already it is already the materials and methods which you're practicing will be there in researches and literature. So that is going to be narrow, and also the results is what you give, so that is also going to be narrow. And the discussion part, you're going to say what you're going to discuss about the results what you obtained, and you're going to broaden it. You're going to relate it with the previous studies, and you can say it is according to a research which is already being done, or if you have found any new thing. So anything, you whatever you get, you need to justify it with the previous literature. So from the narrowing part, you're broadening your discussion. So this is the basic way how your thesis should be, which is in the form of a hourglass. And one more important thing is that uh, the results and the discussion part, you need not always have a fixed mindset of giving the result which is positive. It need not be positive, it can be a positive or a negative one. The negative results also do matter in research. So you just need to be very open and true with your findings which you get. And even if you're getting a negative results, you can just give it justification. The main thing is that your materials and methods should be proper and correct. We have the pipette which we are using in labs, right? There is how many of you know that there are two different clickings in a pipette for workings? It's for a viscous solution we need to click it twice, and for a normal solution just a bit. So that error can make a result go wrong. So basically, you need to know the instruments working for getting your material and method right, for your discussion, for your results to be correct. And if your materials and your methods are correct, you need not worry about the negative or positive results. You just need to justify it. If you're getting a positive result, you can just tell that it has already been in concordance with the previous studies. If you're getting a negative results, you can just justify with what the possible reasons may be. So this is basically the thesis which you're going to write with your research, where in the introduction you're telling why your research matters and why it is important to carry out your research, what solution will be expected from your research, what is your objective. all this will be knowing from your introduction. You need to know the current trends and what you're going to give to the scientific community with your research. Coming to the literature review, this is a very important part. You need to know every work which is done in all the eras, and more of recent literature is needed. And coming to the materials and methods, it should be correct, detailed, and one person should be able to reproduce research which you do in materials and metal section. If you're originally doing your research with full and in a correct way, your materials and method should be proper, which will be reproducible. So here originality is important. Secondly, reproducibility is important in research. Your research, when it is done by you or anyone else for the second time, it should be reproducible, and they should be getting the similar results. So it is that important to do your research in a proper way. So that is about the results, where you're using visuals or tables for clarity. And even when I speak to you, when I just tells with paras, it will be boring for you, right? So similarly is your chairperson and external examiner going to feel. The audience to whom your thesis is going should understand it easily, so that you can use various visuals and tables for your representation of your results. Coming to the discussion and conclusion, as I told you earlier, it can be positive or negative, which you need to justify it, so that you're interpreting your findings in your results. So just that should be given clearly here. And one more major thing which, like, many external examiners tell is that uh, the the results which you're giving are given in tables and figures, right? Many students make the mistake of using the same tables and same graphs in your discussion. That should not be done. Results are showing the results which you're obtaining, and discussion is discussing the results which you're giving. You should not give the same table and same graph which are giving in the result. And many external examiners give in their comments that it is being, the tables or graphs are being used twice. It's enough if you represent your data in any one way. You should not use the same thing in a table and a graph. If you, it is enough if you just represent it in a table or in a graph. Some people, what they do, they give their result as table in the results form, and they give the same data as graphs in their discussion form, which is noted as a mistake by many externals. So you can just avoid doing that. You just need to discuss it with your previous findings and give your interpretation and conclusion which you're getting from your results. So always, you don't need to wait till the last month or the the deadline before submitting your thesis. You can just go on with your daily and weekly writing goals. You as a researcher, one major thing, important thing is writing, and you need to keep on consistently write. You don't need to write your thesis every single day, because as human beings we all feel bored sometimes. But you can just maintain the habit of your writing. You can also write a journal of your daily activities. But always ensure you can just write one single page every day. So when and more importantly, you can use a pen and a paper, which is very effective. It improves your mind clarity, and it also gives you a happy it brings out your thoughts in a very clear way. So I recommend you to write one single page every day, so that as a cumulative effect, when you're writing your thesis, it'll be very easy and effective for you, and flow of words would be better. So as a researcher, you need to write is one important thing. So till now we saw what is a research topic, and what your thesis is going to be, and how you're going to write and interpret your results and discussion. Now, generally, let us look about certain good research practices which you can do. You can just maintain a research library or a lab notebook, which you need to update and keep showing your chairperson. It's important to maintain a good and healthy relationship with your mentor or chairperson, and get the feedback with them, and also reporting up to date about what you're doing, and so that you can have an effective communication, and up to date of your work which you're doing with your chairperson, which will effectively communicate what you need. Like, you can also know, like, what you need to do in the future and not. So that's important. And save all the data systematically. Many people spend hours and put so much efforts collecting data, but while they're coming to the interpretation part, many are missing their data. Many just lose their data. So it's important that right from when you're working on data, organize it systematically and keep it safe. You can either mail it to someone, or you can have a separate pen drive or something for this. It's important you don't miss data. No one is going to help you when your field photo or any of your experimental photos are missing, right? So right from the beginning, have this in your mind that you need to keep all the data systematically, so that it eliminates all the unnecessary and unnecessary tension which will be piling up at the time of thesis submission, which is very important. Next, coming to the ethical practices, you need to have certain like moral and ethical practices which you need to follow. As a researcher, you should just, as I told you earlier, it should be from within you. You should do it for doing it. You should not just do it for the sake of doing it, or just for the sake of getting a degree, right? So you should just do it with some moral, so that you don't just copy someone's data, or you don't uh, you know uh, make up your own data and just copy paste and finish your work. So you should do as much as possible and avoid plagiarism and falsification. And for plagiarism also, we can take a separate thing. Basically, plagiarism is taking someone else's work as your own. So to avoid plagiarism, you need to have your original ideas in your own words. Quotes can be given like that itself, or other works can be given like that. But to avoid plagiarism, one, you can give the references, you can quote them, you can acknowledge them. And another way to avoid plagiarism is giving it in your own words. So by following these two practices, you can avoid plagiarism. And you can also paraphrase it and give it in. Paraphrasing is only what I told you, like giving it in your own words. By doing paraphrasing and acknowledging, by doing these two practices, you can avoid plagiarism. And also follow institutional SOPs, standard operating procedures, and safety practices. You should all do it in a systematic way. For example, I've been instructed, like when you many will be taking photos of your lab or research works. It's important to it is important you wear gloves or your lab coat. So when you're documenting something, you can just have this in your mind that you should follow those rules. So these are all a few good research practices which you can follow. So now we've seen about the topic, the theses, and few practices, good research practices you can follow during research. As many of them had doubts about writing and publishing your manuscripts, now we're going to jump into that part of the webinar. Hope till now you were clear. If you have any doubts also, you can post it. Now we can go to the next part of the webinar, which is nothing but writing and publishing articles. So basically, as I told you, writing is the important part of research, and publishing is another important part of your research journey. Because there's a saying like, if you don't publish, then you'll perish. It's not only important to do a good research, but publishing it to the world is important. You need to keep on record the works which you did. So if you don't do that, it will be outdated, and the work which you do will be of no use. It should be of use to some other researcher and some part of the planet, right? So it's important to publish your work. And when you're doing your research in the first year of coursework, or at the beginning of your research work where you will be collecting literature, that time in now you know your research area or the research topic you're working out. And uh, you'll be collecting a lot of literature, right? This amount of literature will be sufficient so that you can write a review article. Like in our college in TNAU, they made us write review articles, that which was basically with the literature review which you do from the um, literature which you take for your literature review. So for, if you're wishing to it is with this you can write a review article. And let me just give you a basic or a glimpse of how you can write a review article. With all the data and papers you have collected, you can narrow and give a clear focus area. You can just let your review article title not be broad, and it should be a narrow, clear, and narrow one, that is important. You should just not write about vegetables. You could write about chili, not just about food processing engineering. You can just give some particular material and method, and you can write it in a broader way. So that is important, and you need to collect up to date references. For that, after collecting, you'll write an outline. You can use various AI tools for that, and you can create an outline with a logical flow. That is important. Once you create an outline, you need to write working on it. As I told you earlier, you should write it in your own words without any your plagiarism, and you need to write it with your own style. And it's important to cite it with reference. You can use various reference managers like EndNote and Mendeley to make it little easier, and you need to cite, which is important. Lastly, what you're going to do is each journal. Now you're going to for the UG students who will not have an idea, uh, any article which you're going to write, you are going to submit it for a journal for publishing. That journal will have certain formats according to which you need to write. Like for example, it should be in this font size, this spacing, this text, and this reference management styles. There are also many styles of referencing like APA and insight referencing and all that. So each journal will have a particular style of referencing. So whichever journal you're submitting to, you need to check the author guidelines of that journal, and according to that, you're going to format the manuscript which you have been given. So this is just a gist of the steps which you're going to do for writing any review article. And it's important to know the type of journals which you need to know. One is the subscription, and one is the open access, and another one is the hybrid. We say the closed access and the open access. Closed access is something that the author need to pay an amount for the readers to read it. And the open access, the author need to pay the amount, and the subscription mode, anyone can read it. Like in closed access, the author need not pay the amount, but the reader has to subscribe for it for reading the article. You can Many articles will not be downloadable by those all are all subscription articles. Many articles can be downloaded. The PDF forms can be got. That's open. And hybrid journals are both open and closed access journals. So it's important to know the journal which you are publishing, and also you need to know the credibility of that journal. It should have certain metrics and metrics to know the impact factor, like for Scopus and PubMed. So it's important to know about the journal in which you're going to publish. The credible versus fake journal which we are speaking is, there are two journals. One is a peer reviewed one, and another one is a predatory journal. We as researchers should be cautious about these predatory journals. These are nothing but fake journals. They just get amount from writers, and they can just publish in 2 or 3 days or months. Few months for months is enough for them to publish their journals. So we need to be cautious not to submit a manuscript or not to give our articles to these type of journals. We need to focus on peer reviewed journals, which are of quality journals, which identify by either the NAS rating, which is above 6, or the impact factor 1 and above. Any impact factor 1 and above is a peer reviewed journal. And it goes through a process of peer reviewing, which is nothing but a panel of experts will be reviewing your paper, giving you comments. They'll either accept it, or they'll either reject it, or they're going to give an acceptance, they're going to give you reviews which you need to correct, or some articles will be directly also published. So we need to know about this peer journal and predatory journal. And there are statistics like India has many publication of predatory journals. So we as young and responsible researchers should always keep it in mind that we need to do quality work and give it to peer reviewed journals. And we just should not, for the sake of publishing or due to peer pressure, we should not fall into the predatory journals. It's okay even if you take time, you just give your work to some quality journal, which is important. So this is how the peer review process will be going on. So an author will submit his manuscript, and it will be an editor will be assigned to that. An editorial, after the editorial assessment, if it is okay, it will be moving on to the peer reviewers, or else if it is not suitable to that particular journal, straightway desk rejection will be taken. And if it is okay, it will go to the external peer review. It may be one or two or three in many cases. And if all the reviewers are okay, and some may directly publish your work, or some may give you corrections, which you carry out and submit to them immediately, they will publish it if they are finding it okay, and the final decision for publishing the article will come. So you need to go step by step. You need not go directly by shortcuts. So I recommend or instruct you all to go through peer review process and submit to peer reviewed journals. uh, so that is all about the journals and your submission of your manuscripts. And coming to the AI tools for assistance, there are many AI tools which will help a researcher to, you know, reduce his or her time and spend more quality time on research. That was what for AI tools was, invented for. It's just like a knife which you use. It's based on the person who uses the knife. You can use a knife for a good purpose, for cutting a birthday cake, and also for staggering a person. So use AI tools wisely and ethically. That is important. There are various AI tools, as I've mentioned here. Like for writing, you have Writesonic, Jasper, and uh, Wordtune, and all these AI for writing assistants are popular. ChatGPT and Claude AI can also be used. And for finding similar articles, you just upload one article, and you want to know many similar articles, you can go for Litmaps and Research Rabbit. When you want to know the abstract or the gist of any article, you can go for Chat PDF. You can just upload your research article, and whatever you're not understanding, it can be, you can answer, you can ask it questions, and you can get simplified answers. And for listening, like you're just walking, and that time you can just upload your article, and you can just listen it with using these. And journal finders, you can use these AI. And for a review article, it is important you give your images. So for image creation, you can use AIs like BioRender and Inkscape. So you need to it's important to just give an image also to your review articles. And also for creating graphical abstracts, which is important, you can go for these uh, image creation AIs. So as I told you, this should be used ethically. You should just not copy paste Chat PDF. As we all know, it makes mistakes. And like this Ghibli style, which is very trending right now. We all would like to use it, but we all know the human touch of an artist can never be. It's irreplaceable, right? So similarly is your work. Even though you can get some help from these AIs, when you give your touch, it that is important for any work. So even you just need to use AI for improving it, or editing, or making time shorter, or for purpose, but not just totally copy paste what it gives. Sometimes references, so many people just copy paste it. So all this will be done in the predatory journals which I told you. So you need to avoid those mistakes which the AI gives you. There must be your your role in. You can use AI, but you need to you need to read it, cross check it, verify it, and then you can use it. Or you can just use it to just improve your language. So it is important that you maintain an academic integrity while using AI tools. And also it is important to keep some privacy. You need not give all your data or all your information to it. And a transparency as well should be maintained. So this is in just about the AI tools which you can use for your assistance. It should just be used to reduce the uh, time which you spend unnecessarily for writing and all that. It should just very well use it for your research. You need to spend quality time in research, cutting off all the time which gets wasted. For that is what you're going to use AI, but not just copy pasting it, is what you need to remember. So this is basically using AI in your research. So we have covered the basics of the thesis, the research topic you're choosing, the thesis writing part, and the journals, the articles which you're writing, and all that. Now let's just go for applying for fellowship plots. Keep dropping your doubts if you have any in your chat boxes, which we can be applying, and hope you're clear until now. Now we can just look into the next part, which is applying fellowships. So here, first, as a scholar, it is, and also in the question which we asked at the beginning, many were asking about the funds. So as a researcher, many would have the passion for carrying out the research, but funding is a problem. So here in advance, as your UG and PG scholars, in advance you can just think about these fundings, which is also important. You can research about the fellowships early, before you're going into before your research starts, and you can just keep a ready part of your statement of purpose, your academic CV, letters of recommendation, customize your stand and customize your SOPs, and which focus, which match your fellowship focus, and practice how to explain your research clearly and confidently in case you're having an interview in your fellowship which you're applying. So basically, for the uh, researchers and students here, I've just listed few of the fellowships. We all know the ICR, JRF, and SRF. You can just write the ICR, JRF, and SRF exams, which will be conducted every year. And based on your merit, you will be placed into various colleges. And when you're getting the top 10 of top ranks, you'll be awarded with the JRF and SRF, which will help you to do your research. And another thing is Inspire, which is for the PhD students. When you Hello, yeah. So sorry for the inconvenience. Like there was a technical network app problem. So coming back to the fellowships and research, as I was telling you, the ICR, JRF, and SRF exams, which you can write, and the top scorers based on merit will be receiving the JRF and SRF for your PG and PhD programs. And another one is the Inspire Fellowship, which, as I told you, if you're a good scorer or OGP holder in your MSc program, you will be able to apply an Inspire Fellowship in your PhD program. The first holders can apply a research proposal with with a chairperson or a guide, and you'll be able to obtain the Inspire fellowships. So I've just given three research fellowships which may be useful when you're carrying out research. One is the Bayers Foundation is providing master or PhD students from scientific disciplines from the STEM research with fellowship, and the Reliance Foundation invites the first year postgraduate students. It will usually be starting by January, and I think for now it is being closed. But when you join your first MSc, you can be applying for this Reliance Foundation, which is basically like for for 2 years they'll be giving you 6 lakh, and like top 100 students will be shortlisted for this Reliance Foundation based on the leadership and all your abilities. You'll be writing to them, you'll be proposing to them for the foundation, and the top 100 students will be shortlisted, and those who are awarded the fellowship will be given I think 6 lakhs for 2 years. So you can just when you're getting into postgraduate, the first year itself you can get to research about this Reliance Foundation. And you'll also be getting other apart from the amenities, you will be also getting the technical and also the laptop printer and IT equipments also is included in this Reliance Foundation. And another thing, for the World Vegetable Center, few departments like vegetable science, pathology, plant pathology, entomology, these departments can apply for the World Vegetable Center students Golden Jubilee Fellowships, which was there last year. Uh, and this can be applied with SOPs and letter of interest, which will be coming by the end of your second semester. So these are few research which you can apply. And also I've got few contacts of those who got obtained these fellowships. So in case you're interested in these fellowships, by after the webinar you can just ping me out, so that if you are in need of any contacts or the procedures for applying, or if you have any doubts, we can just get that clarified. So coming to a model of an interest letter or SOP is, you need to just give it in a letter format. And this was the one which I applied for the World Vegetable Center. You just need to be very brief, clear, and concise, not telling whatever is unnecessary, just straight to the point. And you need to clearly mention why you are interested in, and you also need to have a basic knowledge about the research which they do, and what are their areas of work, and what the topic you need to choose, and how you're going to and it should not be for many pages, maximum 2. And that's how you write a letter of interest. Coming to building and winning a CV. uh, a CV is a curriculum vitae where you need to give your personal info and career objective, and it must be giving your educational qualifications, your papers which you published or submitted, and the internships and conferences and certificates, all which you're going through, can be given here. And the technical skills and the research experience you have can all be given here. So for the undergraduate and postgraduate students, I highly recommend you to attend many trainings and conferences, and present your papers, and you will be doing your UG projects, you will be doing your research works in your MSc, all that without any hesitation. I recommend you to present in your conferences, so that which will all be adding a great base or foundation, and it will be helping you in your application processes. You can attend internships, those certificates also you can add. And so basically I applied for this World Vegetable Center's Golden Jubilee fellowship, where I was selected for the interview, and this was my CV which I used. You can see at last I have given the online courses which I attended. So I chose the topic of CRISPR-Cas9 for crop improvement for manipulating fruit size in tomato. For this topic, I just went through an online course which is CRISPR Basics by Biotechnica. So what you can do is you can just uh, go for trainings and online courses. You have many like Coursera and so on, right? You can just attend these type of courses, and you can just build on your knowledge on that particular stream, so that the interviewer or the selection committee will they'll know that you're truly showing some interest in that particular field, and you're putting in some efforts to know that. So even if you're undergoing some course, you can add that also here. You can attend various workshops like that you're attending now, and you can you can add all the works which you did there, mostly the most important ones. You need not give the basic ones. The primary one which is aligning with your the scope of the fellowship application, you can just give all that. And the projects and the research works which you've done, like you can see I've also added my undergraduate project, you can add that also. And most importantly, the certificates and the activities which you gone through. So basically you just need to build your CV like this. And as I told you, you need to include the online certification courses. You can just join, there are many courses which is available in Coursera. And in Coursera and all, when you're going, you can also request them for a fee waiver, so you can get courses for free. So if you're applying for any particular fellowship for that topic, you can go for online courses. and you can get their certification and uploaded that in your CV, so the interviewer or the selection committee will know you're keenly interested in. So you just don't basically need a very good CV with a lot of gold medals. As When I was applying, I was just fearing whether I'll get, because I didn't have any big gold medals or 10 on 10 CGPs, but I just applied it with the basic things and the courses which I undergot, so that really helped me. So that is what I wanted to say. You don't need to think that you need to have so much to just get selected. You just need to trust yourself and the process and just give it a try. You just need to put in the efforts without thinking about the outcomes or the results. Just put the process and you may be benefited. So it's important to attend these workshops and webinars and conferences, so that you can add them all in your CV, which are all the important things which interview committee member will be looking for. So this is basically about the CV and the interest letter and few fellowships which are being given. So with this all covered, we are coming to the end of the the webinar, where I would like to just give you a few uh, takeaways, which is nothing but you can just need to start small and stay consistent. And it's okay if you don't know everything. Not everyone knows everything. You can just on the way you just need to learn. So learn as you go, and your journey is unique. Don't compare it with some other person or someone who's settled or preparing for a competitive exam. That's their path, and yours is a different and unique one. You don't need to compare, and just concentrate on what your compassion is and what you need. And you can always use failures as the learning steps. And you need to be very resilient when you want to become a researcher, because you can't it always won't be it always won't be a catwalk. Research, you'll always have like till the last moment. It One person asked, right, about stress, that is making him getting scared of choosing research. Stress will definitely be there in research, but the research which you do will make you resilient. So that is one beautiful part which shapes a researcher. There will be stress, but by the end of the day, when you become a researcher, you would have known to manage it and overcome it, and you would have been a resilient one who can just manage stress. You would have just learned all this. You'll be a strong one who will be managing all that. So you just don't need to be a genius to do research. And if you it's just enough if you have a curiosity and a discipline and the courage to start so your research. And so this is what in just I wanted to tell you. There are many much more, but for this 1 hour, I just wanted to share these things from my experiences and learnings, which I just wanted to share with my dear juniors right here. You can always come to me and for your any doubts or helps. And I've also given my LinkedIn links here, and you can always approach me for any doubts or any clarifications you'll want. So this isn't just about navigating your research journey. And for all the UG, PG, and PhD juniors and friends who have joined this webinar, I would just like to thank you. And hope you got some valuable messages or takeaways from this webinar, and hope it was quite useful for you in choosing your path if you're taking research as your career path, apart from your friends who are studying, or that is theirs. But if you wish to take research as your thing, this is all the things which you need to think. And I hope I just gave an answer for all the things you were getting scared about, the fundings and the manuscript publishing and stress, and whether you're in the right path. Of course you're in the right path if you're having the true passion or the interest. You should just not do it for the namesake. You should do it seriously with passion. Then of course you're in the right path. And also about publication and the result and all the journal. So I hope all this is being covered as much as I can. So this is all about research. So I thank everyone, and I thank Lokavarshini and AgriConnect for giving me this opportunity, and hope this was quite useful to you. Thank you. Keep exploring and keep growing.
So there are some doubts in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, so there's Arundani who's asking about IELTS and TOEFL for PG scholarship abroad. Of course, like many of my friends have also got this fellowships abroad. Like there's one friend of mine who's Vijay Sri who's got the Erasmus Mundus scholarship. You can also go to her LinkedIn updates. You can get many valuable information, and many other friends are also having got PhD scholarships abroad. And what they do about IELTS and TOEFL is that what they recommend is that you need to just go for basic. You don't need to just go for classes or have a proper. You need to pay a fees and join the classes for IELTS and TOEFL. The basic English, and you can also take help of YouTube and keeps preparing for it. And I recommend you not to just first directly go to IELTS and TOEFL and clear it and read. I recommend you to first find the scholarship which you're going to apply, and all the other necessary documents required for it, the CVs, letter of interests, and the recommendation letters. You can just prepare all of it, and after that you can apply for the IELTS and TOEFL JRE results. Once you can just write and see. But for getting it as a eligibility for your applying for the scholarships, you can just start the work after you prepare and keep all the other documents, and then you can go for IELTS and TOEFL and GRE. And I recommend YouTube channels, and self preparation is sufficient for clearing it. And then you can apply for the other scholarships. Thank you. Is there anyone else with any other queries?
டவுட் இருந்துச்சுன்னா chat boxலயே போடலாம்.
Doubts, then I think we can end our session. You can always feel free to reach me up for any help or any doubts or any clarifications you need in future. And so thank you all for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Ka, for the wonderful session, and all the participants. Thank you for joining and spending your time here. Hope the session was helpful. Feedback form will be circulated in the group. Please fill the form so that we can bring more such webinars as you need. Thank you. Session is over, guys.